Right.
books and the fact that they've been in the church for maybe decades, and they've soaked in the incense and they've soaked in the oil from the priest's hands as he turns the page, and that there's something holy about that,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
that you can't replace with a tablet. So I would be really unhappy if the church moved in that direction.
The other thing, was
Me
this
too.
in her article too? Because I don't know where I got this, but somewhere I heard it pointed out to me that when they hold up the book of the Gospels, that's the book of the Gospels. That's all it is. It's nothing else. But if it's digital, it can be anything.
point.
It could be
Yeah.
anything at any time. So
Right.
like the physical fact of this is the Gospels, it's nothing else,
Right.
is important, I think. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to lose it.
I totally agree with that. And in our church, because I'm Byzantine, right? And so when they
Show
hold
off.
up,
I'm sorry.
yeah. Well, after they read the gospel, it's really cute. So at our parish, like all of the kids and children come up and stand underneath the gospel book while the priest is reading the gospel. And at the end, the priest will bless us, you know, the congregation with the gospel. And then all the children get to kiss the gospel book. And our gospel book is like gold gilded with gems
Right.
and everything.
Right.
And that just shows how special and how important it is. But if it looks like the iPad that you have at home,
Right.
there's nothing special about it.
No, exactly.
all.
I think that's exactly right. Byzantine Catholics.
Yes.
Should we have her on this show? I mean, this is a Catholic
No,
show.
the question
I
is,
mean-
should she have us on this
Oh,
show?
all right.
No,
It's
no.
okay to have Byzantine Catholics?
Isn't your dad wasn't he by ritual?
No.
No, okay. Sorry, someone else
It's
that
okay.
could.
Okay, this is interesting. Now, I forgot when I have you two on, I have two interesting stories. I always feel like we have to tell people, because I'm sure there are many people who are not Catholic who are listening all the time, but also Catholics who don't know that there's more than one church community within the Catholic Church.
Yeah,
And we don't just
yeah,
mean
yeah.
parishes. There's also Latin Rite Catholicism, which is the biggest. But there are smaller churches like the Byzantine Rite. These are different rites
Right,
and
and-
churches.
Yeah, and they're called rite, RITE, which stands for ritual. So our ritual is different for the same truth. The
Right.
accidents are a little bit different if we're thinking
But the
philosophically.
But the essence
The
is the
essence
same.
is exactly the same. Yeah.
But now Tim, when you talk about his dad was an Anglican priest who became a
Yes,
Catholic priest.
That's right.
So that's not the same as being by ritual. Like I know a priest. He's a Jesuit. He's Iraqi Jesuit, and so he celebrates the Chaldean Rite and the Latin Rite Mass. That makes him by ritual.
Hmm.
But that's not what your dad did.
No, my dad was a Latin Rite priest. Yeah, he was an Episcopal convert, but then became a Latin Rite priest when he was ordained.
Well, congratulations on the new issue of Catholic Answer magazine.
Yeah, thank you.
I was really interested, and I haven't finished it. I got to finish Eric Salmon's article on the debate that shaped American Catholicism.
I was pleasantly surprised by that article.
It was really cool, huh?
really interesting to me personally, so I hope that would be interesting to other people as
So
well.
it's old timey. It's not like
Yeah.
it's not a old timey is an actual historical term, by the way. That's
What era are we speaking?
yeah. When we're talking about old timey era, that means like before radio,
before tablets.
before any of that. There was a bishop who engaged in a debate with a Protestant minister, and on the frontier. But the frontier was like Ohio, right? It was-
Yes,
The
yes, he
Ohio
makes
River?
that point. Cincinnati was actually really was frontier country at that point.
So this is to
Wow.
give you
mid 1800s.
an idea of how long ago it was. But it's wonderful to it's just cool.
It is cool. I mean, his point was how one person could influence the view of Catholicism nationwide, because he did it with gentleness and humor, and people were like, major newspapers were covering this debate because
Right.
the man he debated founded the Church of Christ. So he was a really towering figure at the time in American Christianity. So. And they respected each other apparently, and really enjoyed each other. But anyway, it's a very interesting look at how one person, at least back in the 1800s, could influence,
Yeah.
a nationwide view of
And
Catholicism.
it's wonderful to think about a time when big city newspapers were covering
Right.
religion in a
Right.
respectful way,
Mm-hmm.
not as religion, wah wah wah, this or that, but actually respectfully covered religion.
Right.
Now we have to have our own radio stations to do it. Really, no, really. I mean,
That's
I think
true,
that's
yeah.
why there's Catholic media
Sure.
now, and well, certainly there's been Protestant radio for a long time, but the last 25 years, lots of Catholic radio as well, because you're never going to get a respectful coverage of religion in the Washington
Right.
Post or the New York
Right.
Times
Mm-hmm.
or there's the Atlantic Monthly has a writer, Emma Green, who's, I don't know if she's Christian herself, but she's very respectful in her coverage. She tries to understand this, like this is not like, oh, Christians believe this and that, and like, and it's that kind of like judgmental.
Right. One remove.
Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But like you're turning your nose up at these foolish Christians. But like, okay, this is what they actually believe. This is what's important to them. She's like actually treating it as reportage rather than, I don't know what the New York Times does. I don't know. My favorite
Opinion.
newspaper. Yeah, it is. I mean, when it comes to religion, it's just awful.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's just awful. It seems like there's a kind of exoticism about it. Like if there's an exotic religious figure, like a woman. No, even let me go like an Inuit gay woman Episcopalian priest. Then they're going to give it because it has all these exotic elements
Sure.
that they like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if it's just normal Christianity, I mean, I'm not saying that woman's not a normal Christian either, even though I made her up. I'm just saying, like, just everyday Christianity is just horrible to them.
If you ask them about it, they'll say, "I'm just not into it."
Oh man! All right, so you should get Catholic Answers magazine. Go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com, CatholicAnswersMagazine.com, and you can get it. But I got a couple other things I wanted to talk to you about.
Let's hear it.
I'm reading an article in The Week magazine, which used to be good. The Week used to be good.
Used to be the strong, right?
No, it's not The Week
Sorry.
like that.
How
It's
much
not,
more time do we have?
Not W.
Who else do we have that
WEAK.
can sit in?
It's the week like
Yes.
this week.
Okay, thank you.
So
I
it,
understand.
and it used to be kind of fair and good, but now it's just. It seems like. Help me out here. Is the presidency of Donald Trump? This is not a reflection on Donald Trump. I'm not. I don't. I really try to stay out of the business of judging political figures at all. But is the presidency of Donald Trump ruining the media? It just seems like everyone has just given up on any kind of fairness or sanity. It's just the world is ending and everything is like I can't. Like magazines like The Week, I used to be able to read and think, okay, it's not. I don't always agree with it, but at least they're in the ballpark of sanity. Now it just seems like we're just tearing ourselves apart. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead.
I agree with you, but the way I would phrase it is that I think this presidency has exposed the media
Oh, exposed. Yeah,
for
that's
what
interesting.
it seems to have, in general, lost its mind and,
Yeah.
and
Right.
quit trying to look like we're being objective about everything, right? That's what it seems to me anyway.
Yeah, I think that the pendulum has definitely swung to the popular opinion, and so
That's it.
that's what it is, and it's just like, okay, here's the thing: if you have everyone having the same popular opinion, you want to have the most exaggerated expression of that popular opinion,
So that you can get eyeballs.
so you can trend.
Well,
yes.
let me because when you say popular, this is what I think. It used to be that the news media felt it had some obligation to be distinct from pop culture. It wasn't pop culture; it was reporting. But now the news media is pop culture.
Yeah.
So that you see like a CNN, their most popular shows are all about pop culture. They're the 70s, the 60s, the 80s, and now they've got this new thing on the movies where they just pour out all this praise and lionizing of pop culture, and it's clear they don't see themselves as critics, which is what they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be at a remove from the society and reporting on these things. But that's not reporting. That's just, it's like the old TV show from the 70s, That's Entertainment. That's all it is.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be that reporters would be embarrassed to be associated with that kind of cheerleading for pop culture.
Yeah.
And pop culture, by the way, it can never be Christian. It can't. You can't have Christian pop culture. I'm convinced of it.
Explain this.
Because I believe that pop culture has to be about consuming, and it has to be about the flesh, essentially, because that's what makes it pop. It has to be about music that has immediate, instant appeal. It has to be about products that have sexiness and an immediate grab. It has to be about movies that don't have depth, but that have breadth. And because it has to appeal very shallowly and broadly, it has to be the opposite of what Christianity, Christianity is supposed to make a crisis in you. The point of Jesus is, I am confronting you with the truth. Choose, make a choice. And he is the truth that he's confronting us with. And we either go, yeah, I want the truth. I don't want all the world, the flesh, and the devil. I want you. Or we don't. And pop culture always has to be about the world, the flesh, and the devil. It has to, or else it can't be pop culture.
It can't appeal to as many people.
It can't have that broad, shallow appeal.
Reach.
So I believe pop culture is of its nature anti-Christian, because it's promoting the one thing that Jesus is saying stay away from, which is the world.
I agree with you. Pop, of course, is short for popular, so you have to make that distinction. I would say certainly in the modern world, you're spot on. But I would argue pop culture maybe in the 1500s could be Christian.
I was wondering about. I was thinking like back in the Middle Ages, and it's just like all of the religious crusades. Everything was about.
But
that's a good point.
But it's a quibble. It's a quibble because we're talking about.
No, it's a good. I think it makes a very good distinction, because pop culture, its nature changed with the advent of mass media.
Mm-hmm.
So pop culture in medieval England is something that is, connected to the feasts and the seasons of the church, and it's got traveling troops of minstrels and musicians and actors and all that come around, and so there is an element of pop to it, but its nature changes when it's one guy on TV, is commanding this hour of your time, or that kind of thing.
And I think you're right that it came with mass media, because as we were talking about earlier, even that debate in the 1800s was, I would consider that part of pop culture, because it was covered with great interest by the popular media. People were interested in it.
But it's that old wireless radio ruined everything. As soon as radio came along, no, it was the moving pictures, I think.
Really?
I think so. We're so easily sucked in by television and video and movies. I think that was world transforming.
They mimic life more better.
More better.
Mo better.
This is the editor of a magazine, by the way. You're listening to Catholic Answers today on Radio Maria US, a Christian voice in your home. I am Cy Kellett, your host. If you want to know about Radio Maria, please visit radiomaria.us. And remember, in the summer months, everybody, I'll just say nonprofits really appreciate your support in the summer months. And don't forget Radio Maria. You can find us at Catholic.com and some various other websites associated with Catholic.com, like CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. But the central website is Catholic.com. And our mission is just to explain and defend the Catholic faith. I started to say something about the Week magazine, but then it became a discussion about how I don't like the Week magazine. But there's a writer, Ruth Margolis, that writes about parenting and family and all that. And sometimes she gets it right, sometimes she gets it wrong, whatever. Guess what? I'm a parent, you're a parent. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. Is that correct? That's the definition of parenting.
It's not apparent, but sometimes it is.
Oh my gosh.
I've been away from the office for a week, and it just seems to have piled up somehow in my head, and I apologize, and I'll try to suppress it.
All right. Well, so Ruth has an article, and the headline of it is "The Myth of the Magical Childhood," and I'm going to just put it in 2 sentences for you.
Okay.
She says, "People are trying to make their children's lives magical, and you should stop it and let your kids be bored for the summer."
Yes. Emphatic yes.
All right, tell me why. Tell me why. Because I am totally with you, and I'm emphatic yes on that.
Well, for me, growing up, I spent a good amount of time with like different aunts and my grandparents and stuff like that, large Irish Catholic family. And they were always telling us, go outside, just go outside. And it was like, well, what are we supposed to do? There's nothing to do. Go find something to do.
Right.
And those were like some of the best times that I had playing outside, like making up games. Like you would just start by walking on someone's fence, and then you'd make it some sort of a competition, and
Yeah.
you get to really learn about your character
Yeah.
in certain ways, you know, and even about your, you know, imagination. And you learn, I think, so imagination, obviously, I think it's something that's personal to your personality, but you can also learn how to grow your imagination by playing with other children and having them exercise their imagination at the same time. And I think it's very helpful. And for me, it has, like, I'm an introvert, if you haven't noticed me around the office. I'm not, you know, big on chatting and
I
talking
thought
that
you were
much.
just a really mean person. I am.
Man, that's just my face. I'm joking. No,
I'm
it's just I have
joking, too.
like it's
Yeah.
an interior life, which as a Catholic, you have to have a deep interior life, and
Praise-
I live
you hit it.
inside my interior castle all the time.
That's it.
Oh, I stole that
Interior
from
life.
Teresa
Life,
of Avila.
life is not worth living without an interior life.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Jesus is calling us to: is an interior life. And it pray. You are so good. Why don't we have you on the show more often? What's the matter? We always have Ryland on.
Who has no interior life?
Yeah,
Because I'm
and
all
he just
interior.
makes
I would
puns.
just sit here at the mic and be like, while
yeah.
I ponder and think things over.
But you are so right. You have to be bored to develop an interior life. You
Mm-hmm.
have to go through that.
Yeah.
Ryland.
And not only in interior life, creativity. When my kids were bored, you know, I'd say, well, just be bored. And I'd come back, and my son, for instance, who was maybe 5 at the time, had taken this Lego set that was supposed to look like one thing and had made it look like something completely different. It was just the coolest thing.
Yeah.
So he was,
Right.
you know, it's creativity, it's the interior life. So I agree. I agree in theory, but playing devil's advocate, I would say it's a different world. Same thing with me, like go out and come back at dinner time. It's hard to do that these days, even if it's safe. You know, my kids, we lived on a cul-de-sac. We had a nice little green belt with a park just literally a stone's throw, 2 stone's throws away. But I let my kids out 5 or 6 years old playing the playground and not be exactly there with them during the summer. And I would get looks like, hey, what are you doing letting your kids be out of your sight?
That's
You know,
I
you're
know.
a bad parent.
Right. There is that. And also there's just a lot of anxiety about
Sure
I mean,
there
parents
is.
really are like
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, you just go.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean,
Come back for
Well,
lunch, maybe.
yeah, we came back for lunch cuz
But
You're
then
hungry.
But then
Because
you're
we're
gone
hungry.
again
Yeah.
until dinner.
but then yeah, you're
Yeah.
gone and just gone. Like don't look if you, as a matter of fact there were some times where my mother would have been like, "Why are you here?"
Oh.
Like
Yeah,
like what
get out.
why are you back? It's like 4 p.m. Dinner's not for 2 hours. Why are you here? So, but that's, you know, she's got 7 kids.
Right.
And some of them were younger than me and my brothers. And, you know, we're kind of in the middle, me and my brothers. And so you're expected to be gone. I got stuff to
that's
do.
right, right.
I got babies to take care of. Go.
And I wonder
but
if-
people are scared to do that now.
I wonder if the amount of children people are typically having has something to do with that.
Yeah.
Like for me, well, it was just myself and my brother. So there was 2 of us, but like I said, I had a lot of cousins, and so we were always kind of like clumped together. So there were at least 4 or 5 of us, and
Yeah.
like, you know, what could happen if there's that many of you?
Right.
You know, not much really, you know.
No, somebody will come running back
Yeah.
if an arm gets broken or something.
Exactly.
And then then you as a parent in those days, if your arm was broken, they'd be like, "Nah, wait a day, we'll see
Yeah.
if it's broken. We'll take you to the doctor tomorrow.
We'll
Let's
just
see if
put
it's
some,
really
some frozen peas on it for now.
we'll check back up with you." Okay, so I am so happy you hit the interior life thing though, because the boredom thing, the filling up a child's life, especially with, you know, if I mean, even sports is great. You know, I like organized sports. I wasn't really raised in an organized sports family. Like my brothers played baseball and stuff, and I think I played basketball at a certain point. But we weren't that family that was always every season. You know, you got a new sport that you're into and all that. But we were always out doing stuff, riding our bikes, riding a skateboard. I was terrible at it. I didn't really do the skateboard, but as a matter of fact, speaking of broken bones, no, I won't go into that. But you know, just running wild, or we
Sure.
lived in Southern California, you could go to the beach. So that I think the organized sports thing I don't identify with as much, but even that is too much of that. I think too much of organized sports does that. It again, you're filling up the hours for the kid. let them fill up the hours. They got to figure something out. You go organize a baseball game. You don't need a league.
Yeah, I didn't do any sports teams. I was a competitive Irish dancer, which is a solo gig. And everyone is taught, like if you go to a dance school, everyone at your level, you're taught the same dances, the same steps, and then you go to compete. So it's like you have to find a way to figure out how to make your dance look different, even though it has to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
So it does take some creativity, like, well, how can I hit this step a little harder or put a little bit more flair here or there. And I always found that to, that is something where I exercised a lot of my creativity, and maybe that's why I did as well as I did. But at home, we would play baseball outside or softball, whatever it is when you use a tennis ball. I mean,
Yeah.
we weren't allowed actual hard balls. But, we would just find some kids. Hey, let's play. Someone has balls. Someone has a bat.
Right.
And then we would mark out our own bases, and then we'd make up the rules as we went, which
Right.
some people would call cheating, but it's just exercising your imagination.
Right. And then a fight would break out. You'd have to work that out.
Yeah.
Arguments would happen.
Problem-solving skills.
Right. And the thing is, it should be our concern as parents, I think, to be concerned about the interior life of our children, not just their intellectual well-being or their physical well-being or their getting into the right school. As a matter of fact, I wish people would give less priority to the getting into the right school thing. Myself, I think it's not as important as you think it is, but developing that interior life.
Mm-hmm. And here's the dark side of what we're talking about. I was out to dinner a couple nights ago, and my companion nudged me and pointed over to the table next to us. Couldn't have been more than 18 months old. Kid sitting there, parents talking. The kid had the phone and was playing games and scrolling around on something or other. It couldn't have been more than a year and a half old.
Yeah.
Ignored by the parents. And I watched for a while.
Yeah.
This went on for, 20, 25 minutes. And my heart ached. Our hearts were aching looking at this kid.
Yeah.
Whose parents were not engaging with, and the kid didn't want to be engaged. He was engaged with the phone. So,
but that phone is actually probably. You don't want to be too doctrinaire about it because, man, there's times when if I had something to entertain, especially my son, when I'm trying to grocery shop, man, he'd have gotten it, whatever it was.
Of course.
Like he had a freakish talent, my son, as about a 3 or 4 year old. He didn't want to be pushed in the cart. He wanted to walk. And I would say, okay, you can walk, but you can't just get under my feet. Like, you have to walk as a separate person. That dude was underfoot. Like, I tripped over that 4-year-old. Like, it's like, dude, just stand over, like, walk over here. But he would just slide in and under. And then I don't know what that was about.
Was he not allowed to ride on the cart?
He didn't want to. See, he wanted to walk with Dad. But then he wouldn't walk next to me. He'd find a way. Like, it would always be like, when I'm reaching over for something over here, he's right under the feet.
Yeah, no.
So I can, sometimes.
No, of course. We're talking in extremes here.
Right.
And I was thinking the same thing with sports. I don't want people out there to think we don't think organized sports is a good thing. My kids
it's a good
love
thing, yeah.
that teaches a lot of good lessons as well, right? But it can't fill up your life. There's got to be a balance. You can have a kid play on a device every now and then, but
you got to be willing to let them be bored sometimes.
That's right.
Like, if they can't ever go to the supermarket without a device, that's not a service that you're doing to your child. I mean, a kid needs to look around at other people and, get a smile from an old lady. And you're not supposed to say old lady anymore, right? You're supposed to say old woman.
I don't know.
Like,
old? No, can't say old. I think.
Yeah, I
just
think
say
that's
it.
the
I know,
buzzword there.
The thing is, I feel like words are just words. Like, get over yourself.
But everything is a cause for offense.
Yeah, I know. This is what old people do, all right? Can I tell you?
Tell me.
As an old person, this is what old people do. They go, these millennials, it's all about their feelings. It's nothing is about facts. You've heard this? All the old people
I've
say
heard it.
it's all about feelings. And then you say to the old person, well, as an old person, and then they interrupt you. I'm not old. You're only as old as you feel. And I'm like, no, because you said it's all about facts.
Yeah,
it's
not
not about your
feelings.
feelings. Fact is, you're old. Okay, Probably just got fired for that. But I'm not young, so I can say those kinds of things,
No,
right?
there's nothing wrong with being old. Old is
No, that's
beautiful.
what I
You lived
think.
a long life.
I know, I don't-
You have stories to tell. You lived in a better era than we're in now.
Right.
A lot of times.
You're not digging this. You
Oh,
wish
no,
I
I
would stop
totally-
using the word old.
No, I don't mind it at all. But I was just chuckling because we had to go through training recently,
Oh,
sexual
yeah.
harassment, et cetera, and I found out
California, state of California mandated
Exactly,
training.
right.
Yes.
And I found out that you guys can get in trouble for calling me grandpa. Okay, so keep that in mind.
What?
That's like ageism, right? It's like, yes, it's offensive to me. I'm suddenly offended if someone calls me grandpa. So don't do it.
No, I mean, I would never do that to a
Well, I
really
appre- I
elderly
appreciate-
person like yourself. It could be offensive, like, because you're pretty much falling apart, and I don't want to. Yeah, that's.
Back it up a little bit.
I don't know if all states have mandated trainings like
I
that.
think
Like
it's coming if they don't yet.
California is
It's the
a little
worst.
bit
Too
it's a-
sensitive.
yeah, but it's also a little bit Big Brother-ish to me.
Oh,
like
sure.
you're supposed to think this way. You're supposed to think this way. Don't think this way. Don't say these things. I mean, I'm all for the no sexual harassment thing.
Of course.
But I feel like that requires something much more. I mean, a fundamental change in the way men think about women, and
Right.
that's happening at a
And vice versa.
yeah, I'm sure that's the case as well. Yeah, that's true. I'm sure that's the case. But like you can't tell adolescents via every image they see.
Of course, right.
This is how life is, and then they act like that,
Right.
and you go, "That's not how life is." Like, well, wait a second. You just taught them since the time they were children that that's how life is, and now you're telling them no. Maybe you should have. Well, we can't. We don't want censorship. No, you don't want. You don't want censorship until it's the child that you influenced takes you seriously. Okay, so go ahead.
No, I'm done.
You're done.
Yeah,
You're not gonna-
I'm off this train.
Am
I'm
I-
joking.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Okay. So, but the interior life, if I could, again, I think that we have a lot of like to be Catholic is first of all about the encounter with Jesus, and at another level after that, then it's but pretty immediately after that, it's the encounter with his church, which is a new kind of communion in the world, a new community. So but for a lot of us, the actual encounters are backwards.
Yeah,
But I
and
just
that's
mean
unfortunate.
I just mean first in order of importance, not in order of how they actually happen.
But that's how
Mo-
they used to happen.
that you would meet Jesus 1st, yeah, and then you would be invited to be right. But I mean, we want a world in which people are baptized as infants and grow up to know and love the Lord and in confidence that the Lord loves them. Like, so you do kind of want a world where people meet the church first, and then they meet, in the context of the church, they meet Jesus. No,
I think it has to be that way.
Really?
But look at you.
I'm
The
skeptical
theologian does
about
not
this.
agree with us.
Well, you
with
have
us.
to meet Jesus at some point, even though you're baptized and you're raised a Catholic. At some point, you have to make that decision as an individual to accept it or not accept it, or make the decision not to accept it for a while before you come back and realize, yes, this is the truth.
Or
So you have to-
or just muddle through without making a decision, which
Well,
turns
a lot of
out to
people
be a
do.
decision.
Well, that's true,
you know,
too.
get farther enough along that road, and that is a decision. So, but you don't agree. You think everybody has to meet Jesus before they meet the church.
Okay, I think that it's important for like children in Catholic families to be exposed to the church, right? They should be going to mass with their parents.
Right.
They should be sitting out in the pews, not playing in the cry room. They should be there present for what's going on. But then at home, the parents really need to cultivate that interior life and that relationship with Jesus, the fact that Jesus
yeah.
is a person. And I encounter some small children from time to time that during the Mass, you can tell their parents have done this because they'll know during the host, they're like, that's Jesus, it's
Yeah.
Jesus,
Yeah.
Jesus, I love you. You know, they have this cute innocence about them and they believe, and
Okay.
I don't know how their parents have done it, like maybe showing them pictures of Jesus or statues of Jesus and then telling them also that the host is Jesus.
Right.
Or the Eucharist is Jesus. And then within that, like before they're being like catechized, like during formal catechesis to get their sacraments, then it will actually mean something, rather than this is a place where I go once a week to learn these things that I have to learn so that I can, wear my pretty white dress or my suit and go
I see.
for that thing that I'm supposed to do. Because it doesn't mean anything to those children. It's
Yeah.
just something that's kind of special because their parents are like getting them special clothes and they've made it like a kind of like a bigger, like it's an event, but they don't understand interiorly what it is. And-
I see what you're saying. So it's that they do. It's through the church, especially their parents as the domestic church. They're constantly being introduced to Jesus
Yes. Yeah, in
Okay.
that personal way.
in a personal way. Yeah. Oh, okay. I agree with that. I that makes sense to me. I agree with
Yeah,
that.
and then
Yeah.
and as they grow, because you have to start it young, and from my training and education in this topic, you have to continue to address children where they are in their age of emotional development and mental development, and help them to, yes, that little kid that's like super excited, like that little toddler about Jesus during the Mass, when they get a little bit older, you have to explain Jesus to them in a way that's more age appropriate so that they can continue to see Jesus as someone that they can relate to at the age that they are.
Okay.
Now, I've never done this myself, so just put that out there. I don't have any children, but
But you're going to be great at it.
yeah, we'll
you
see.
do.
But I mean, that's what we're taught in theology school. When
Yeah.
it comes to catechesis,
No,
it's
I
important-
like your understanding of catechesis. I really like that. It makes a great deal of sense to me. It does. It seems to me there still comes for every person the crisis. You have to
Yes.
face what am I choosing
Yes, and that's, I think,
for
once
myself?
in a more mature state. Well, how do I say that? Like when a person is in that, I don't want to say age of reason, because I think it's further along in your development than an age of reason. I think
Doesn't it depend on the person? I mean, you hear people as a child who go, I love Jesus, I want Jesus, and they never go back on it. Like as a child, they make that decision. Some 12 or 13 years old, some much later than that.
Yeah, but I think a lot of times, at least in my experience with myself and people that I've known, is their crisis comes when they start to notice there's a big difference between the world and what they think the world should be. And the reason they think the world should be a different way is, and that has to do with their formation, what they've been taught about morality and what they've been taught about ethics, and how those are all grounded in Catholic truth. And they see that, and what's going on in society and in their schools or amongst their friends or their peer groups or the things that their friends and peer groups are into, and they're just disenchanted by it all. And that's when I think they have that crisis. And they're like, I don't, I either have to go with them,
Yeah.
or where do I go? And if you've built up that foundation within them, then they know that they can go to the church and really say, this is what I believe and this is what I want to do with my life.
The one, if I may say one thing about that, though, as a parent, is I think a lot of parents are shocked in their children's teenage years about how powerful pop culture is. That they did all those things to prepare the child. They did not fail in their duty.
Right.
They really didn't. They did everything they could to foster all of that. And when the child chose, the child said, "No, you Christians are unfair to gay people or something," and off they went.
No,
and
that's
then you
true.
may not see them in church again until they're getting ready to baptize their children, or maybe much later than that. But I do think for a lot of young parents, the birth of their children is the event that brings them back to the faith. Sometimes it's a spouse that does that. Sometimes it's marriage, which is why I think we should do so much work with parents who are bringing children to be baptized. Why are you here? Do you know why you're here? Do you know what this is? What are you seeking for this child? Do you have that yourself? Can I tell you about that? That kind of stuff, which I think the church is doing very well in many places. Because I'm not the first person who thought of that. But
No.
I really feel bad for the parent who, and I include among them myself.
And myself.
Yeah, that now. But I don't include among them. I'm not saying I was some great hero as a parent, but I see parents who really, truly, you think that parent loves Jesus, loves the child, tried to bring the two of them together, and the child said, "No, I don't like that. I'm not digging that. That's not my thing. I'm going a different direction. Or they say to the parents something like, religion just doesn't mean to me what it means to you. And then it was, oh, okay, all right, I see where we're going. And you feel your heart kind of breaks because you feel like, man, you're in for a hard time now, kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I love you, but you're in for a hard time now.
And I can also say from personal experience, I was that kid.
Oh,
I was
man.
I was that kid.
Yeah.
At one
I
point.
wasn't. I was like a
Yeah.
saint. I was
Well,
one of those 7-year-olds.
I
It was
know.
like,
we see the halo.
Can you
around
see
me.
it? Can you see it in me? Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah. You're listening to Catholic Answers today on Radio Maria US, a Christian voice in your home. I am Cy Kellett, your host. I am joined by podcaster Rochelle Lucero, whose podcast is Clumsy Theosis. You can find it wherever you find a high quality or even low quality podcasts. Just
That's
look
right.
for Clumsy Theosis. You won't be sorry you did. It's very practical help towards a life of full integration and intimate love with God.
Yes, sir.
And our other guest today is Tim Ryland, the editor of Catholic Answers magazine. Both of them, as we have now found out, former heathens and sinners. But I'm glad to have you both back in the fold. Welcome back.
Well, thank you.
I mean, I assume it wasn't just today that you came back, but
No.
I guess, a certain way you do come back every day.
Well, that's true,
It's
isn't
true.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like any love story.
You got to go, oh, man, Lord, I was so mad at that person in traffic, and I was not charitable. And I always feel like, I don't know, you never get over your own parents in a way. So in a way that coming back, because you kind of, as a Christian, you constantly have to come back. I always feel like I'm going to get scolded or something, and it's only at other times, like in the context of the Mass, where I go, oh man, all of that is pointless. Like all of my worrying about Jesus fussing at me is pointless. He's not fussing at me.
No.
He's happy when I come back. That's it. He's happy when I come back.
Yep.
Which
I
is
agree.
good because I'm doing all the time. I'm coming back.
And
like
it's-
I've constantly, just my commute is a near occasion of sin for me.
Cy has a brutal commute, folks. I just have to tell you that.
But it's a near occasion of sin for me.
Yes.
In every it's not that's how weak I am as a human being. Just getting in the car is a risk to my.
But your humility and your
Yeah, right.
ability to see this is a strength.
All
That
right.
means that
All
there's
right.
room for growth.
Yeah, there's definitely room for growth.
And you're open to that growth.
Right. Any person who's ever said about me, there's room for growth, has been correct. There is. Okay, but back to that interior life. Okay, so and I really appreciate all you said about catechesis and proper catechesis of children. My point that I wanted to get to was that the modern child, we're calling them into intimate relationship with Jesus and communion with other human beings. And they are 18, 19, 20, 30, 40, and they have never had true intimacy or community. They've never experienced it.
Yeah.
So they don't know what it is they're like. This is foreign to them. They've lived in a machine,
And everything's filtered.
and they've had
Beautiful.
goals, and they've had they've had good TED Talks and all this, and if TED Talks, I don't know, TED Talks are not a replacement for human life. They're just not. Some of them are good, I'm sure. A lot of them are goofy, but get over the TED Talks. Get over the YouTube videos. What you need is the intimate love of God and a community of other people, and you've never had it. But I don't know how they're going to get it if they've never had it.
Well, that's why I think it's key for parents as Rochelle was saying, from early on to inculcate that in their children. The grounding in the faith, to me, is the critical aspect of all of this, because even if you stray, if you have a firm grounding in the faith, there's a real possibility you're going to come back. Same thing with me. I had a firm grounding. I strayed as a young adult, but when I had my own family, as you were saying, and children, like, okay, what's important, right? What is important? You come back to that faith. I have an 18-year-old son, off to college, not practicing his faith right now. As a second grader, after his first communion, somebody said, "Hey, Ben's crying over there," and I went to him and said, "Ben, what's wrong?" He was sobbing, and he said to me, "I'm so happy."
Oh,
And I thought, that's just God-given, right? That's grace.
that is grace,
And
without
so
question.
you have this big strapping 18-year-old that thinks he's cool now and doesn't want to go to church. But that grace that moved him as a 7-year-old kid doesn't go away. It sits there in your
Right.
in your heart and your soul, and it calls you back.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Yeah.
I think I
That
have to
call is
believe
there.
that. So I
Yeah.
think grounding in the faith is key. It's key for people in order to, but that assumes what you're talking about, that they have felt at some point that communion, that community. So my kids went to a little private Catholic school, very Orthodox, etc. I think they had that experience, and the couple that right now are finding their way
Back.
they're finding their way in the world. They're going to find their way back. I mean, that's what I hope and pray for. But I feel like the grounding in the faith is just critical.
Yeah.
If they don't have that, then they don't have something to come back to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you know that kids that come over to our house, they're like, sometimes my son is a skater, so skateboarding is
Yeah,
his thing,
it's-
right? So which is big here in Southern California. So, but skating is also it's a very therapeutic thing. So often kids that have been struggling in their life, skating is so physical and rhythmic that it's very attractive to kids who have trauma or upset in their life. So, and many of them are wonderful, wonderful kids, but they need to skate their hours every day in order to deal with that's how they're coping, in other
Yeah,
words. So and my son among them, actually, I think it's been very therapeutic for him. But these are often kind of a little bit broken kids, and they can come to our house, right? But they don't. Many of them don't know that that's what a house is supposed to be. They're like, their parents don't talk to them, or they wouldn't be allowed to have other kids come and just hang out. They don't know that that's the purpose of a home. That they haven't encountered that at all. And I get like, if there's enough of them in the house, I start to think, I don't want you all here. But I feel so like I kind of feel like I start to feel like a little bit like I would really like to go to bed soon. But I really don't want to clean up anybody else's mess anymore. But I feel like, my gosh, these kids are desperate for this. They don't know that this is where I do think there was a certain time where more kids knew that. More kids had that. The parents weren't just in the media, watching media, or that weren't checked out. I feel like maybe that's it. We're checked out in a way, so that I don't think that young people know what community is. They don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think that people are checked out, and I think that's what it is. And they're engaging in false realities, just because it's like reality TV, or it's just like these are their live feeds on their social media accounts. They are duped into thinking that this is society, this is community, this is how you interact with people. But then they don't have, like you said, any concept of what that's really like. And for the faith, I know how important that is. And so for Clumsy Theosis, one of my goals with every single episode is to give someone a practical way so I'll explain something about the faith, but then show why it's important for them to know, not just so that they can be in right standing with the faith, but so that they can apply it to themselves and to their lives, and to grow and nurture that relationship with the Lord and with the church. And that's something that I found is lacking in other places. And here at Catholic Answers, we focus on apologetics. That's our bread and butter. It's explaining and defending the faith, which is great to help sort out people if they don't have correct understanding, or if they were taught things when they were younger and they were just kind of like wonky teachings. But I have noticed, though, that people that focus just strictly on that, and that's how they come into the faith, they're behind in that relationship aspect with the Lord. It's just all cerebral. It's all intellectual. And yes, they're in right standing with the faith. And yes, they've come to love the faith and what the faith teaches and the truths of it, but they haven't encountered Christ as a person and let him, and maybe it's kind of like Protestant-y, and people just kind of like back away from that, like have that personal relationship with Jesus
relationship.
Christ.
Those
But
words sound Protestant to a lot of
and
Catholics.
so and people have kind of been like, oh, that's not us, but it's totally us. Hello, I mean, God's present, body, blood, soul, and divinity in the Eucharist. I mean, how much more personal can you get?
Right.
But in your prayer life and in your interior life, it's extremely important, and that's why I focus on what I focus on, because I saw that that's lacking, and I give instruction on how to do that. You would think that people would just, I'm going to learn something, and then they're going to take that step automatically. How do I integrate this into my life? How do I integrate this into my relationships with people and with God? And that's not a natural step for a lot of people anymore. And so that's why I make it very obvious and blatant in my episodes.
Well, even just the idea of theosis, the fact that God is the whole point of all of this is God wants to share his own life with you.
Yes.
Like that's basically what theosis is, right? You
Yes.
become able to share in God's life.
Yes.
So
And his life isn't
If
just
you-
the rules of the church. That's not his life.
yes, right. But if you know that, like even if you just know that, you're like, wow, that's a whole different trajectory for my life than I had. I thought I was just behaving good so I could go to heaven, and the food's better in heaven than in hell. You know, like the temperature's better. Like that. But once you know, no, this is someone wants to share everything. Like the prodigal son story is not just a story about one son followed the rules and one son didn't. The father wanted to share himself completely with both sons, and they both found their own way of rejecting him. One by following all the rules, and one by not following any of the rules.
Right.
And neither of them got the thing that the father wanted them to have.
Which was relationship,
Which was
intimacy. Yeah. Yeah.
I stand accused, but I'm completely silent in this whole thing.
Why you don't have a relationship with Jesus?
Well, I came to the church intellectually,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it all made sense to me. I never said, "Oh, that's silly." Everything coheres. Everything makes sense perfectly intellectually. What's always been my faith journey is to make the connection between head and heart. Exactly what Rochelle's talking about. I need to listen to Clumsy Theosis more.
You should. You can get it wherever high quality
Podcasts,
podcasts
are
are
around.
available. That's an interesting thing. That's an interesting thing. You came to the faith intellectually, and you gotta. I can kind of sympathize with that.
But
I
you
feel
see
like-
the importance, you know.
Oh, I
you know,
certainly
and that
do.
is your aim, even though it might not be as I don't natural as the intellectual is for you. I don't know.
Not to me, but I have to tell you, my whole life I've yearned. You go to church, right, and you see these little prayer warriors, these little ladies,
Yeah.
old ladies. Maybe I could say in their
Right.
80s, and they're
You can
in
say
front
old.
of the
On this show, you can say old.
in front of the Blessed Sacrament, praying, helping out, and they probably couldn't quote you chapter and verse. They probably don't know. They couldn't explain the faith perhaps as well as I can, working here at Catholic Answers all these years. But their hearts are on fire, right? They have this personal experience of God, and I look at them and I think I'd want to be you, not me.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. And this all started because we're having this conversation about this article in the Week magazine about allowing your children to be bored in the summer. But that is, I mean, the reason I think just for mental health reasons, boredom as a child is very good for you.
Yes.
But there is a deeper reason too. That if we grow up these adults who don't know anything about relationship, about quiet, about boredom, if they've never been to the interior room inside of themselves, they're not going to be ready for Jesus. And
No.
we want them ready for Jesus.
Or for other people, good healthy relationships.
Yeah, Jesus
Yeah.
and his, yeah. All right. Well, Tim Ryland is the editor of Catholic Answers magazine. A new edition is out right now. You can get it at CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. Rochelle Lucero is the podcaster behind Clumsy Theosis. You can find that, as we said, wherever you get your podcast. Theosis is TheoSis. Clumsy Theosis. I am Cy Kellett, your happy and easily drawn into sin host. But I'll try to be
Repentant.
Yeah, be repentant. We'll see you next time, God willing, on Catholic Answers Today.